Let's talk about one of the most toxic dynamics in modern organizations. I'm referring to what happens when resource allocation becomes political instead of strategic. There's nothing quite like watching a room full of intelligent professionals turn into children fighting over toys. But that's exactly what you get when teams don't trust how resources are assigned. I've sat through countless meetings where the loudest voice wins, where seniority trumps strategy, and where teams walk away convinced that the whole process is rigged. The worst part is there's usually no malicious intent. The leaders aren't deliberately playing favorites, they're just operating without a system. And here's the uncomfortable fact. When resource allocation feels political, it usually is political. Because without clear criteria and transparent processes, every decision becomes subjective. And subjective decisions invite all the dysfunction that politics brings. Picture this scenario. 3 department heads walk into quarterly planning, each convinced that their initiative is the most critical. For instance, marketing needs developers for the lead generation platform, product wants to rebuild the onboarding workflow, engineering is pushing for technical debt reduction. But without clear allocation principles, what happens? Well, the most persuasive presenter wins, or the person with the best relationship with the leader, or whoever makes the biggest fuss about missing their deadline. Meanwhile, the teams watch this unfold and draw their own conclusions. Like, it doesn't matter what we deliver, it matters who you know. Or strategic priorities are just whatever sounds good in the moment. This creates a vicious cycle that gets worse over time. As trust in the process erodes, people start gaming the system. They overscope their requests to account for expected cuts. They build coalitions to influence decisions behind the scenes. They escalate everything because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And before you know it, you're not running a business. You're refereeing a popularity contest. And the cost isn't just hurt feelings. It's a misaligned execution. It's eroded trust and strategic drift that happens on one exception at a time. Strategic priorities get undermined by whoever lobbies the hardest. Execution slows down as people second guess every decision. Now, the antidote to political resource allocation is not more meetings or better intentions. It's building a system that makes decisions transparent. It makes them criteria-based and defensible. And here's exactly how you do it. Step 1. Define clear allocation principles. Start by establishing explicit criteria for how resource decisions get made. What matters most when choosing between competing initiatives? Create a simple hierarchy. Strategic alignment comes first. Impact potential comes second. Team readiness comes third. Now document these principles and communicate them broadly. When everyone knows the rules of the game, they don't complain as much about the results. The key is consistency. Apply the same criteria to every decision regardless of who's asking or how loudly they're asking. Step 2. Score and rank requests. Transform subjective debates into objective evaluations. Create a scoring model that rates each initiative across your allocation principles. For example, you might say strategic alignment gets 1 to 5 points, business impact gets 1 to 5 points, delivery readiness gets 1 to 5 points. So the total possible score is out of 15. This doesn't eliminate judgment, but it structures judgment. Instead of, I feel like this is important, teams need to articulate, here's why this scores high on strategic alignment and impact. Make trade-offs based on score, not seniority. Step 3. Publish your resource decisions. And here's where courage matters the most. Don't just communicate what got approved, explain why it got approved and what didn't make the cut. Share the scoring rationale in planning documents or roadmap reviews. Like, Initiative A scored 14 out of 15 and aligns with our Q3 priorities. Initiative B scored 9 out of 15 and will be revisited next quarter. Transparency is not always comfortable, but it does build trust. When people understand the logic behind decisions, they're more likely to support the outcomes even when their project didn't win. Step 4. Create a shared resource view. Make allocation visible across the organization. Build a dashboard or a regular report that shows who's working on what and for how long, and with what level of utilization. This prevents the stealth overcommitment problem, where teams quietly get assigned to multiple initiatives without anyone tracking the collision. It also highlights underutilized resources that could be redeployed to higher priority work. And then step 5, address the squeaky wheel patterns. This is the most important step for long-term system health. track resource change requests, and identify patterns of escalation or end runs around the process. If the same people are constantly pushing for exceptions, coach them on working within the system. If certain types of requests always get approved despite low scores, examine whether your criteria need adjustment. The moment you start making exceptions based on politics instead of principles, you undermine the entire framework. Now, the real breakthrough happens when you stop treating resource allocation as a zero-sum battle and start treating it as a strategic optimization problem. Instead of, how do I get more resources for my project, the question becomes, how do we allocate our finite resources to maximize organizational impact? Political resource allocation isn't just unfair, it's strategically destructive. When the loudest voice wins instead of the best initiative, you're optimizing for influence instead of impact. So start with step 1. Define your allocation principles and communicate them clearly. You'll be amazed how much drama disappears when everybody knows the rules of the game.